destroy the Denver Broncos 43-8 behind a sensational defensive performance. Malcolm Smith ends up as your MVP of the Super Bowl. Peyton Manning throws 2 picks. Percy Harvin has a huge impact on the game as well. Steven Edwards, give me your full breakdown and analysis of last night in New Jersey.
I think the first play kind of says it all. I mean, I think I was as shocked as anyone else to see that's the way we actually managed to open up a Super Bowl. I mean, it's led to a point of where, you've got the opportunity to put points on the board straight away, and not only do you give up points, you then give up field possession at the same time. And I think then Seattle just used that to try and gain some momentum from the get-go. I think the other thing is that was quite prevalent last night was that Denver in the first quarter really didn't get any yardage after the catch. Every time Manning did actually manage to connect with one of his receivers, there was a Seattle player right then and there to make the tackle straight away, which means what it then does is it then keeps the yards per catch down, which means then you take longer to try and get the first downs. And although you're moving the ball, you're not moving it as well as you would like to. So it just puts you in some very difficult situations. I think at times Manning tried to force it. I think that was the other thing for me. I think he made a couple of mistakes, and I think that was partly brought on by how much Seattle managed to get him under pressure. I think they only sacked him once in the actual game, but it was everything else that went along with that and the amount of pressure he felt for me in the pocket. And he seemed to get a bit rattled, maybe checked off to a receiver too quickly rather than letting the play develop. So again, it just didn't help Denver's offense. But again, that's what Seattle's defense does, and it kind of brings us, into the question mark of whether this Seattle defense is one of the greatest of all time. I mean, I remember the 2000 Ravens defense was incredibly good, but this Seattle defense for me just literally suffocates the life out of teams. It's like putting the whole team in a vice and just having it completely tightened. And on the other side of the ball, Seattle just did enough. I mean, Russell Wilson put up a performance I think me and you both thought he would put up. It was the old thing. I mean, he's going to get around about 200 to 250 yards. He's going to be accurate. He's going to not turn the ball over. And I think that's, again, we talked about it before. If you don't turn the ball over, then it makes it more difficult for the other team. 0 turnovers. Who'd have thought you win the Super Bowl with 0 turnovers? Well, of course, that's going to put you in position to win the game, whereas Denver turned it over on 4 separate occasions, and then you just had the big plays when they mattered. Obviously, Harvin's big kick return for a touchdown, and you have the interception return for a touchdown as well. And I think it was more, Seattle kind of played within themselves and just were methodical and just picked up what they could, and literally was just like a very, very ruthless out there in how they dismantled this Denver team and suffocated the life out of them on the other side of the ball.
Yeah, I thought it was a staggering performance from Seattle. Their defense was just insane, is probably the word to use. Just manic all over the place. He's talking about gang tackling 4 and 5 guys around the ball on every single play. They just look quicker, stronger and fast than the Denver Broncos offense. This is a historic offense that they very nearly shut out for the whole game. It was a sensational performance. You're right with the offensive side of the ball with Russell Wilson. They didn't have to do too much. I like the way they bring in multiple linemen. They went really strong in the run game. It was almost unapologetic. Like, this is what we're doing. We're bringing in 2 linemen. Now, they threw out those sets a lot, which was surprising, but it's like, this is what we're doing. This is what you expect. Try and beat it. And they were able to stop Marshawn Lynch when we all thought it was going to be Lynch, who had to go for like 150 to win this game. They were able to really limit him, even with those multiple line sets. But then they use Percy Harvin in motion, and they get him with the ball in his hands in the run game. They use Russell Wilson scrambling around in the run game. The amount of plays he made when the pocket broke down, it looks like no interceptions, and he just had a nice clean pocket and he was able to manage the game and move the ball around. He was scrambling around all over the place and making plays and then just dumping it off for 3 or 4 yard completions. That's what's so special about him to me. I just think he's got an incredible career in front of him and 1 ring already to his name, as many as Peyton on the other side. The Broncos, for me, I thought were... Peyton has come out today and criticised the word embarrassing. I thought they were pathetic all game. They were just out-physicaled all game, and that's embarrassing in the Super Bowl. That's the only word you can use. They were destroyed on their offensive line. Orlando Franklin should retire tomorrow. He was so bad it was untrue. Just killed by that ludicrously good defensive line with Michael Bennett and Cliff Averill and these boys from Seattle. Just crucified him all day. Payton had no time to do anything at the line. Yeah, I discussed this with you yesterday, and it was mentioned multiple times on the commentary by Troy Aikman and Jeff Reinebold doing the coverage over here. Seattle don't play anything spectacular on defense. They had about 4 coverages throughout the whole thing, 1, 2, 3, and shell 2. It's about all they used the whole game. They don't do much. They're just really good. They just have great players. They were fantastic. I was blown away by how good they were. I was even more blown away that Fast and Loose didn't run the score up. I thought he'd go for that 56-point mark to get the highest score ever. So fair play to Pete Carroll for putting Tavares Jackson in for a couple of downs. Big shout out to Tavares Jackson getting on the Super Bowl field. I just thought it was staggering how 2 professional teams can look so different on the biggest of stages. You know, this is an NFC champion playing an AFC champion, and you just wouldn't be able to tell. I mean, they looked so bad and so slow in comparison. They just looked weaker. They didn't look as fast. By the way, I despise the question about being the best defense of all time. It isn't even close. The 2000 Ravens are the greatest defense that has ever stepped on any field. This team got 34 dropped in it by Carson Palmer-led Arizona Cardinals a week ago. And they looked terrific yesterday. They are fantastic. Don't get me wrong. They could be top 3, top 4 all time. But when Carson Palmer's dropping 34 on you, no one dropped more than 20 on the 2000 Ravens. It didn't happen. It didn't happen. They never even needed an offense to win games. At least this team needed Russell Wilson to come through in the right moments. The other team just said, clear out our way, Trent Dilfer. We'll take the ball to the house every time, and we'll win this game for us. That 2000 Ravens defense is the greatest, undisputed, all-time ever. I never saw the 84 Bears, so I can't, contend with that one. That would just be me trying to look cool and clever and be a football snob. I'm going with the 2000 Ravens defense for that one. But again, Harvin, huge difference maker in the game. We thought he would be if he was able to play multiple downs. I called the kick return, if you remember my bold prediction. I thought he'd have another one for like 60 or 70 yards, but he got the one kick return. Getting the ball in his hands was so important in the run game as well. Just get him in space, give him the ball, let him make plays, try and get Denver's defense to make some plays. And the real old, tired legs of Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie and Champ Bailey were just gashed all day by younger legs of Jermaine Kearse and Baldwin. It was just a mismatch all day long. It was a mismatch.
Yeah, and this is it. A mismatch is the right way to describe it. I mean, it was these 2 teams were so far apart on the day. It was just absolutely incredible. And I know we it's the old saying, isn't it? As part of this is that offense wins games, but defense wins championships. And I think that was none more apparent last night in the fact that a defense can win these big games, and you've taken one of the best offensive teams in recent memory and just completely just shut them down. Do I think Manning didn't have the best of games? Yeah, I do. I do think he didn't have the best of games. I'm not going to sit here and throw words at him, but I mean, if he's not happy with the word embarrassing, I don't know what else you want to describe it as. I mean, it was pathetic. And when have we seen a Denver team get rolled over in a Super Bowl? Well, yeah, it has happened before with a great John Elway at quarterback. But I really wasn't happy watching this game from a Denver point of view. I just think they didn't show enough for me. And maybe that Seattle defense has got into certain members of their team's heads, because I think they, as much as it was, a swarming defense and shutting them down, you have to think, in a 2-week break, you've got to come up with some kind of game plan. And you're sitting here saying, about Arizona putting 34 points against them, and that, is that a blip? Possibly. They didn't play well that day. But, I mean, I'd like to think that this kind of offense would come up with something to at least make this game competitive. And I know that, for me, the game was decided about 3 minutes before, but a stretch between 3 minutes before half time and the first play of the second half. I mean, that's when 14 points went on the board and pretty much killed this game as any sort of a spectacle. And at that point, I think there might have been a few people in this country that went 29-0 at 1:30 in the morning, or whatever time it was. Hang on a minute, I think I'll shut down and I'll give the rest of this game a miss. And I wouldn't blame people for doing that, because the game was over. I thought, maybe if Denver going to half-time at 15-0 down, maybe that's not. It can be overcome, but especially with this offense, but it just didn't happen. Their offense is a good word for their offense. Yes, it was anemic.
They were anemic. I think what's great about the Seahawks is I used the word before, unapologetic in what they do. And I think they do the same thing both on offense and defense, like I said, with that, bringing in the extra offensive linemen and saying, we're running the ball, try and stop it. They did the exact same thing on defense by not using many coverages. They just said, we're going to play man-to-man across the board, try and get off us, try and beat me as Richard Sherman one-on-one. I thought what was really interesting is that the Seahawks actually matched up Richard Sherman on Julius Thomas, the tight end, a lot. And I thought that was a mismatch, and that's the one they try and avoid. And yet they said, no, bring it on. We're putting our best shutdown corner on your best red zone threat, your best offensive threat. I thought that was a staggering decision, and he was just out of his head good. And people will look down, I think he had like 3 tackles and 1 deflection, so it doesn't look great on paper. Did you even hear his name? You know a cornerback's having a great name if you don't hear him called all game, because no one's picking on him. And what happened is that they were killing them at the line constantly. Guys like Wes Welker, who've made a career out of being able to get off man coverage, were just being destroyed at the line by Walter Thurman, Bobby Wagner, Thomas coming down in the game, Cam Chancellor coming down into the game and into the box as well. And all they ran all game was then screens. We're going bubble screen, we're going pop screen, we're going slot screen. It was the only thing they ran all game to get any sort of yardage was Peyton Manning physically handing the ball off to wide receivers. Then he gets the record-breaking completion attempts, and then you get receivers with a good amount of yardage. But look at the yards per attempt, because all they got were the handoffs, essentially, was the screen passes, because the only way to get those guys open was to try and create something like a screenplay and get those guys blocked up front, because they were just getting blown up on the line. I think that's what makes this defense so different, is that all the other great defenses of years have been built from a great defensive line and usually a great linebacker, whereas this defense is great on the outside, worked in. It's fantastic defensive line, but as we've said many times, it's rotation on that defensive line. Cliff Avrill's a great player, should have probably been the MVP yesterday, didn't get it. Bennett's a great player. He could have been MVP as well. It's a really good defensive line, but the true best players in that whole defense is the linebacker Bobby Wagner, and then it's Earl Thomas, Cam Chancellor, and Richard Sherman. It's the defensive backs. It's not on the front side of the defense, which I think is what separates this team from other great defensive teams.
Yeah, I think the actual MVP call yesterday was probably one of the toughest decisions going. I mean, you could have given it to the whole Seattle defense.
It would have been great if they did as well. That'd have been great. They should have done it, in fairness. I mean, they'll know themselves, and Michael Smith, who won it, will probably know, Malcolm Smith, sorry, probably will have known that it was the whole defense, and he did thank his teammates, but they had to give someone the car, Stephen. They can't all get Chevrolets.
Allocate time for the car. I mean, Malcolm Smith probably essentially gets it because he's the one that returns the interception for the touchdown, and that's the reason why he gets it above all else. But I mean, as I say, you could make a perfect case for the whole defense having that award. And yeah, you're right what you say about the yards per catch. And I was saying, going back to what I was saying about the game, is that they just didn't get anything. They caught the ball, but didn't really get anything else on top of that. I mean, when you look at a guy like Darius Thomas, who had 13 receptions for 118 yards, I think 9.1 yards per catch, I think was his lowest output per catch in the whole season. I mean, 118 yards, it's taking you 13 receptions to get that. I mean...
There was no big plays. They didn't have a big play guy. You said it yesterday on the pre-show, on the pre-game show we did. You said they're clinical, they're methodical. I can't remember the actual way you phrased it, but it's like watching clockwork with the way they march down the field. Yeah. First down, red zone, touchdown is the way they play. And when you're playing this Seattle defense, you don't get that. You have to make plays. You have to, I mean... Thinking back to the Arizona game, I think they were getting some screen plays, some huge plays downfield with Carson Palmer's big arm in that scheme. That would make sense to me before I rewatch the game. This sort of clinical, methodical offense probably is one of the worst to go up against this team, because like I said, they're just killing you at the line. And then if those receivers can't get off, you're then in consistent third and long, second and long situations even Peyton himself doesn't like to be in. And then when you got Cliff Averill and Michael Bennett in your face and around your legs, you can't move because Bennett's going to take your ankles out, and you can't step up in the pocket because Averill's just destroying the thing. I mean, it is a nightmare for that offense. It's just a bad fit. But I thought Adam Gase and Peyton Manning, they may not want, and Adam Gase is the offensive coordinator for those who don't know, for him to say, embarrassing is a bad word. It really isn't correct because he is known for preparation. That's his thing. How could they not be prepared for the amount of man coverage? We've all known this. Seattle say, we're staying outside here. Richard Sherman, I'm playing on the left side. He told us all week, I'm playing on the left side. I'm playing man-to-man coverage over whoever comes here. And then they play zone underneath. That's just what they do. They've done it all season. How could they not be prepared for that and then just say, right, let's just come up with this screen game from start to finish? Because they only really went to that. I mean, they were off the field for a long time, I get that, but they only really went to that, the end of the second quarter, and then, of course, there was the kick return, and basically the game was over before the time they really got to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think preparation, it's a key point as well. I mean, they probably did look unprepared for the game, and that's it. It's the reason why you have 2 weeks. You 2 weeks to scheme up different things to try and win this game, and I just don't think they did their homework. I think, no disrespect, maybe we could have schemed up a bit of game plan and to try and take this Seattle defense apart. What
frustrates me with the preparation more than anything is the first play of the game. Now, I don't want to pile on anyone like Peyton. Peyton, that is, I always criticize him and take shots in because it frustrates when people talk about him being the greatest ever. And I do want to get to that in a minute. Everyone's talking about Peyton's legacy. It must be in first take, Stephen. We'll have to get to it in just a little while. But for you to have a safety on the first play of the game, nothing smacks of someone not preparing properly. You know bets with Don Shula that he would have plays called up and designed before the start of the game, and most teams do. And this time Peyton gets free license with the offense to go up to the line of scrimmage and audible. How can you not just hand that off for the first play of the game? Let's just get the thing going. Let's cool everyone down. We've come out the tunnel. Why does Peyton go up to the line and have to change the audible? And clearly he's trying to audible and say something to the centre. It's really loud. He snaps the ball thinking he's heard the snap count. How can you let that happen on the first play of the game? Just say, I'm standing under centre. We're going to hand the ball off for 1 or 2 plays and we're going to get out of this. Because they didn't take the ball. It was deferred by Seattle. Great move by Pete Carroll. Everyone's heart's thumping. Just stand on the centre, Peyton. Hand the ball off for a couple of plays. Get everyone to calm down. That's a really young centre they got there in terms of experience in the league. Obviously, the starter at the start of the season went down and he came in. He's never played in a Super Bowl. It's a young offensive line. They've not played in a Super Bowl. Everyone has to take a deep breath and realise we're just playing football here. We've got a historic offense. Now let's go at it. Now what happens is Peyton stood there. He's audible in Omaha, of course, which we didn't hear at all throughout the game, much to the depression of the city of Omaha and Nebraska. And then he snaps the ball and it goes over Peyton's head, and that's for a safety. Now Peyton's annoyed because the centre let him down. Now the centre's got that in his head for the rest of the game. Everyone's frantic, and before you know it, it's like 13-zip to Seattle before you even get back on the field. So I thought that was a really bad decision. I'm not putting it all down to Peyton because that's how he's made his name. If he saw great coverage and he thought I can get this, and if he got a clean snap, who knows? I just think that you really have to just say to everyone before the game, if they defer to us, we're handing the ball off and we're all calming down.
Yeah, I agree. I think handing off that first play was the right thing to do, and you can't underestimate sometimes, what pressure you might feel in that situation. It's a lot of guys' first Super Bowl. You've got to do something to try and calm the nerves, and to try and call an audible on the first play was probably not the brightest thing that Peyton Manning's ever done. And I mean, it was loud. It really was loud.
Talk about being blown away by that defense. Blown away by that commercial crowd, supposedly, Stephen, that sounded like we were in Seattle.
It was loud, wasn't it? I mean,
it was epic.
I was surprised as how loud it was. I mean, I was expecting, as we call it, the corporate crowd, and maybe that it's not going to be quite, the raucous occasion you maybe want it to be. But, it was loud. So I think Peyton should have taken it into consideration and just, calm things down. And even if it had resulted in a punt on the first possession, well, really, is that such a bad thing? You just really just want to just try and calm those nerves to start off with. Couple of runs and then try and complete a pass and then just go from there and just go back to doing the things you want to do. Then that's when you start moving the ball along. In terms of what you said there about Don Shula, I mean, there was a time where a lot of guys used to script their first 15 plays.
Absolutely.
That was what they always used to do. So everyone knew what the first 15 plays were, and that was it. And you would go down that route. Then after that, and obviously then things would change depending on how the game plan was going and what the score was. So I think sometimes maybe quarterbacks have got a bit too much control to actually be able to change things like that. And I think certainly maybe Peyton Manning certainly made an absolute howler there. And as you rightly say, I mean, it rattles a guy right from the get-go. I mean, you're down, I touched on you right, you're down 2-0 to start off with. Then you're going to have to punt the ball over, and you give up your field possession, and then your backs are against the wall, because unless your defense can come up with a really good stop, you're at least going to be down 5-0, 9-0. And I think they did well, actually, in that respect. They got it, they kept it to 5-0, got the ball back, and you're sitting there thinking, well, hang on a minute, maybe if Denver can now get a touchdown on the board, it isn't such a bad thing. But it just didn't happen like that, because Seattle were just in the zone right from the get-go. They knew exactly what their game plan was on defense, what they wanted to do, and then they were actually the methodical team on offense to actually be able to move the ball as to how they wanted to do it.
Before we get to the Peyton legacy talk and the Seattle dynasty talk, two of my favourite topics that have been discussed on every single show in the world. So, of course, people are going to want our impressions. Do you have any commentary or presenter clangers that you enjoyed from the Super Bowl coverage?
Do you know what? I'll sit there and say this to you now. I actually turned down the volume on the game. I turned it down really, really low, so I could hear like the little bit of crowd noise. I mean, it's quite late in my house anyway, so I don't like waking people up in some respects. But it's because it's Fox. I don't want to listen to Buck and Aikman. I really don't. They're appalling 1 and 2. Aikman actually comes across better than Buck does, and that's because Buck just sounds awful in whichever thing he touches. He's a disgrace to the Buck name of announcing, unfortunately, and he's as equally poor on the baseball coverage as he is on the American football coverage. And if that's Fox's number one crew, there's a reason why they're still regarded as the Mickey Mouse network that they are.
Killed off by Steven Edwards there. My favourite actual clanger from them was the 90-second discussion just post the halftime interval, when they were saying how great the halftime was for Denver, collect their heads, things haven't gone well, now we'll come out and see what happened. And it was bad for Seattle because they were so hyped. And then about, it's probably 9 seconds later, Percy Harvin's at the house just like dancing around. So I loved that for one. And then my other point was, and I'll preface this by saying, Neil Reynolds from Sky Sports News had one of the best games he's ever had as a Sky Sports analyst, and I haven't dropped him a message yet. I am literally going to email him post-podcast, because I just reminded myself to say, I've criticised you a lot, and he knows that.
Was he mute?
No, I actually genuinely, I thought he was fantastic. He cleared out the way for Reinbold, didn't try and pretend like he knew what he was talking about, but Cecil Martin helped him look good as well, because Cecil did my head in. But it brings me to this. He had a great one, where, Jeff Reinbold, for those who don't know in international coverage, Jeff Reinbold used to work at SMU, has been around the coaching circuit, is now in Canada coaching, and he comes over here for once the Canadian season finishes to help our guys with the broadcasting, and it's fantastic with all he does, breaking down the true X's and O's of what goes on in the game. Really helps out people in this country trying to get to know some of the X's and O's of the game as well, and obviously helps Neil, who looks lost at times, but did a terrific job again last night. But of course, for those who don't know, Pete Carroll and Jeff Reinbold go way back. Pete Carroll, the second oldest coach in the league, people forget that. And they've known each other for a long time around the coaching circuit. So obviously he's calling him Pete. I mean, it's fine to do that, I guess. I don't know if you're supposed to do it. I've never been on TV like that. He's calling him Pete and stuff, and because that's his friend and he knows him and all that. And then, of course, Neil Reynolds persists to call him Pete twice. I'm thinking, what? You don't know this man. Well, he goes, of course, we were talking to Pete, Jeff. Like, now suddenly him and Pete Carroll are the best of buds in the world, because he was one of 100,000 people at Media Day. So I thought that was terrific as well. He did it twice. Then he caught it, and you could see he caught it, and he went, Pete Carroll, on the third time. So that was terrific.
Oh, geez, what a great person he is.
One of a kind.
Just rubbish. Sorry.
So Peyton's legacy then, Stephen. This is one thing I just want to say. I want to clear this out the way, two things even, before we go into all this, because we have been known once in a while to criticise Peyton Manning and not bow down at the altar of the Manning household. It's been known once in a while on First Take UK. Both of us respect Peyton. We know he's great. We know he's had one of the best seasons of all time, if not the best seasons of all time by a quarterback. I still contend Marino's was better because it was in a different era where you could literally pass block to the point of holding the face mask 50 yards down the field. But still, I think this Peyton season was number 2. So I respect that. We like him. But we're going to have this discussion, and a lot of it will be negative towards what happened yesterday and Peyton Manning's career. And it leads me to the point, how in the world was the whole world seeming to be unanimous in the fact that if Peyton won, he was now the GOAT? Yeah, if he lost, he wasn't. How can you be the greatest of all time if it hinges on one game? That's my point. Like, if Montana went into his last Super Bowl, it wouldn't have been disputed. Well, he needs this one. It's needed. Brady needs this one. If he doesn't get it, that's it. He can't even be considered. How are you the best if it hinges on that one game? That can't make any sense to me. It's the same thing if it comes to LeBron James in 4 years' time and we say he needs these NBA finals to eclipse Michael Jordan. I'll say, well, how is in the world is he eclipsing Michael Jordan if that's what he needs? If it's one game? You know, it doesn't make any sense to me how people could come to this conclusion. And then you look at the playoff record now. He's like, what, 11 and 12 in the playoffs? So what, if he was 12 and 11, he's the best ever? I mean, it makes no sense to me. He has 5 MVPs in the regular season. Let's just call the dogs off then if we're only counting the regular season, and let's just forget about the Super Bowl and all that goes with it, because clearly we're just going to count what goes in the regular season now and no longer look at the postseason when his little brother's got a better record than him. And there's a couple of people still playing the game right now in Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, who have better records than him. And oh, by the way, Russell Wilson just won as many Lombardi trophies as he's hoisted aloft in his career. So where does Peyton's legacy lie for you right now?
I think this is a problem where you let people have an opinion.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, it just sounded rude, but that's exactly what happens. I saw it yesterday, and I got so tired of seeing people say Peyton Manning is the greatest of all time. And again, I will say this: Super Bowls don't define a player. It doesn't. It's not what makes you the greatest of all time. It's a whole package of things, and if it's how you perform in playoff games. It's how you perform under adversity. It's how sometimes you make other players around you. Sometimes you are great, and it's things like that. And for me, it didn't matter whether Manning won that game yesterday. It didn't define his legacy. I'm not going to sit here and say, you're not a great quarterback, Peyton, because you've only got one Super Bowl ring. It's not what I'm going to say. Peyton Manning is a great quarterback. What I'll say, I think we was actually quite complimentary to him, certainly over about the last week, in saying, look what he's come back from. He's faced adversity. He got put into a really good scenario. The fact is, you've still got to remember what he came back from. And for him to be able to do that and put up that kind of a season, I thought was absolutely incredible. But the arguments that are floating around about whether or not he wins this game, he's then the greatest of all time. If he doesn't win the game, then no, he's not. He's absolutely ridiculous. I think Peyton Manning has cemented himself as one of the great quarterbacks of all time. And I would probably put him, in that top 3, top 4.
Agreed.
And I don't think you can do anything else other than that. I mean, the guy has been absolutely phenomenal. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's, for me, top 3, top 4 quarterbacks of all time. I think he is just in that next tier below for me. And I've said this many times on the podcast. He is just below your Tom Brady and your Joe Montana, because I don't think anyone comes close to those. Yes, I was fortunate enough to see Joe Montana in his prime. And obviously, I've seen Tom Brady through the whole of his career, and taking your biases aside, I mean, you still, you've got to recognise the fact that Tom Brady is one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. They're top 2. For me, I put Peyton Manning kind of in that next tier, with like a John Elway. I think that's where he then goes to. Even like, what are you going to do with like Dan Marino then? He hasn't won a ring, so he's not one of the great quarterbacks of all time. That is just ridiculous. Dan Marino doesn't have a ring because he didn't have the players around him.
And neither did John Elway, and that's the issue I have with Peyton as well, is that he's had everything around him needed to be successful. And it's not like he hasn't got the opportunity to do these things. It's often come down to him making an error in judgment, a lapse in concentration, whatever you want to say, making the wrong thing, thinking too much of others around him. and then the season has fallen away. That game had nothing to do with him. Outside of the audible we discussed, I mean, it was out of hand by the time he got back on the field. It was. And he wasn't on the defense looking like old age pensioners trying to catch, little kids. That sounds wrong. But that is what it looked like at times in terms of the athleticism and speed. He wasn't on that team. So it just doesn't mean anything to me. For me, he's remains fourth. He'll probably always remain fourth because you have an age bias. You have a personality bias. I'm not a fan of the fact that the media just can't get enough of him. And that's not his fault. I'm sure he's an endearing man to meet, and I'd love to meet him and interview him and what have you. Maybe you could answer some of these questions for me and help me out with some X's and O's as well. I just think that he gets given a pass when other guys get criticised for things that he's done wrong in his career, and people overlook and say, well, last year, Raheem Morris misplayed the Flacco bomb. Yeah, but the game wasn't over. It went to overtime, and Manning could have marched down the field and we wouldn't have spoke about it, but he threw a ball across his body and got the interception, and no one mentioned it for a year, which is what frustrated me. For me, him and Elway are the perfect customers together because Elway failed in the big games with no players around him. Peyton wasn't ever so dominant. He often got his team in a hole and had to bring it back, whereas Peyton is just flat out dominant in the regular season. It's just not even a question. If we're going for a 16-game stretch in the regular season, no one is taking anyone other than Peyton Manning. But the fact remains, when we get to December and January, and now February, there's only two guys you would consider taking at the moment, and that would be Tom or that would be Joe Montana. It's as simple as it is. Joe Montana, I said this so many times now, what is it? 11 touchdowns, 0 interceptions in the Super Bowl? Are you kidding me? He didn't even turn the ball over once. That's just flat out ridiculous. It's impossible. And, Peyton turned the ball over twice yesterday, which shows you how easy it is. So the question of, again, whether yesterday hinged on whether he's now the best of all time or is not the best of all time was so ludicrous. If you need that one game to define his legacy and his lifetime achievement, then that is embarrassing, Peyton. It's not him. It's the idiots, as you say, Stephen, who are allowed to verbalise these words instantly now on the internet and ask these questions. He's fantastic. He's one of the greatest. First ballot Hall of Fame. One of those ones where I say the Hall of Fame committee should be allowed to unanimously vote him in. The minute he retires, they should be able to sit down that year and say this guy can join us because he's that good, which is what he is. And he just sadly falls short of Montana and Brady for me at this moment.
Yeah, this is it. I mean, they're always, and I can't say always because you never know what's going to happen. But for a while now, they've always been the guys for me that have been the yardstick.
Pretty much.
I did find it difficult for a while to think that another quarterback would go out there with Montana. I mean, even as a hater of the 49ers growing up because they were just that good. But you still had to respect just how great they were at the same time. So to even elevate another quarterback up to Montana's level took a lot, even in my mind. But I mean, Brady is there, and he's there by right. For me, they are. We talk about his clutch gene, but they are the greatest clutch quarterbacks that I've ever seen. They really are. They just do it in the big games. I mean, that stat that you've just thrown out there. I mean, the 11 touchdowns, 0 interceptions in a Super Bowl. You think about the pressure cooker in those situations, and I don't want to hear people tell me and say, "Oh yeah, when Montana had those weapons," but then you can't say that about Montana and then not say that about Manning because Montana only had the same kind of weapons that Manning has. I'll give you. He had one of the greatest wide receivers of all time. And John Taylor may very well be the second, for one of the second great wide receivers of all time as a number 2 guy. So, but it's very difficult, to get up to that level. And I think if Manning sits there and has, 2, 3, 4 Super Bowls, then I think 3 or 4 Super Bowls maybe you're having a slightly different argument, but. It's the other thing as well for me, the 11 and 12 in the playoffs. It kind of worries me as well because again, you'd have never seen those kind of numbers against Brady or Montana. Them numbers just don't happen.
The amount of one and dones as well.
It does come down to a lot of things, but I think you can't. There's not one specific criteria, but for me, he's on that same level as an Elway. And maybe I say for me, my top 5 would always be Brady, Montana. Whichever way you want to do it, I would probably still lead towards Montana. Elway, Manning, and then probably Marino.
That's my identical top 5, by the way. Because they just are that good. And I never saw Johnny Unitas. I don't think anyone now has really seen Johnny Unitas in his prime that can give me a good enough description of how excellent he was, but people swear by him as well. This is the thing with the Manning. It's not just the... now, on his resume, his one Super Bowl, it came against Rex Grossman, with the worst QBR in a Super Bowl of all time. Second only to Peyton last night, by the way. So Peyton had the most completions ever, had the second ever worst QBR in the Super Bowl. A Super Bowl that included the Ben Roethlisberger debacle in Glendale, Arizona. So it wasn't great for Peyton. It's not great for the quote-unquote legacy, but we know how good he is. We respect how good he is. Unfortunately, he just won't crack that top tier as we've discussed tonight. Stephen, I want to talk about this Seattle thing, because the thing I saw moments after it was basically done. We are witnessing the birth of a dynasty. That's what I was tweeted millions of times, popped on my multiple timelines millions of times. A dynasty's been born in the Midwest. Can we stop this already? Why can't people just sit back and enjoy what they've seen for a night? And the funny thing was, it wasn't even from Seattle fans. They don't care. They just won the Super Bowl. They've been waiting for years to win a Super Bowl. They finally got it done. They don't care about a dynasty. They could wait another 20-odd years. They're just enjoying it right now. This Seattle dynasty thing is laughable because Russell Wilson is going to get paid. He can't get paid next year, but he's going to get paid. Richard Sherman gets paid $1.4 million next year. That's it, 1.4. He's going to get paid more than Darrelle Revis next year. He's going to get paid. He can get paid this offseason. They've got guys who signed up to the Seattle thing on a one-year deal, a prove-me-year deal after having a down year, and they thought, I'm going to a good team, we got a chance here, and I can get myself a multi-year contract the next year. Seattle can't afford it now. They've got big players to make. So other players, you're looking at Thurman Thomas and these boys, they're going to get paid. People are going to get paid on this team, Stephen. You can't keep them all around. It's what the salary cap here is for, is to prohibit a quote-unquote dynasty. You look at the New England Patriots. What's the one thing that stayed with the New England Patriots? It's the offensive line, it's the quarterback. They can't afford to keep everything else around. It's the way it works. So this Seattle Seahawks dynasty thing is just a nonsense to me.
Yeah, it becomes very, very difficult in this day and age, and we've seen it. I mean, the Patriots are kind of like the exception rather than the rule, but you've got players this is it. You've got players that want to be paid. There is at times where players take less money to play in great scenarios in the NFL, but I find it difficult to think of this team having a really long dynasty. I think in the immediate future, then yeah, I think that there is some. That there's potential there for these guys to, march back again to another Super Bowl. But I think the other thing for me is the fact that the NFC is so competitive. I mean, we've only seen this year. I mean, you've got like the 49ers, at times they didn't even look like the best team in their own division. We were making a case there, the 49ers being the best team in not the NFC, but the NFL as a whole. So they're going to be the team that's going to be, knocking on the door again next season. And obviously you've got like the Panthers, the Saints, and various other teams as well. So it's not going to be easy to get back into there from the NFC. I think maybe from the AFC route, I think if Seattle played in the AFC, you could make a much bigger case for them potentially going back to the Super Bowl, certainly over the next couple of years. But in the NFC, I wouldn't take anything for granted. There is any number of about 5 or 6 teams could knock each other off.
In fairness to them, the general manager, John Schneider, has done a fantastic job with late round draft picks and picking up bargain free agents like Cliff Averill. I mean, he's on like $5 million a year. He's like a $22 million a year player is how he plays. So he's picked up bargains, which lends you to think if he can keep nailing them, and what have I said this whole season with you, they are the best team with depth with that negligible difference between the 1 and 2 spot across the board, that they made us let the number 1 guy go and say, well, our number 2 guy's epic. So he's stepping up. This is a team where the Jacksonville Jaguars cut players at the start of the season off their physical 53-man roster, Stephen, just for roster spots, not caring who was cut from the Seahawks, but saying we're going to pick some of them up. They're also good. We're going to pick up whoever they cut. We don't care. That is the thing that happened in this league for about 3 ball clubs. The Chiefs did it as well. So they've got depth everywhere. So they've proven that talent, but it's so difficult to sustain. And you're right with what you say. With that NFC is just so loaded. I mean, they could get kicked out in the first round next year just because they got to go to Lambeau or something. That could so easily happen. So to talk of a dynasty is just unfair on this team right now. Just enjoy what it is. Wilson's going to get paid, not this year, next year, which is unfair, but, then he's going to get paid and it's going to be very fair. He's going to get paid some big money. And Richard Sherman's going to get paid, and they're all deserving of it. And do not bemoan a single player for leaving the Seahawks team by saying, you're breaking it apart, you're breaking apart LOB, the Legion of Boom, you're breaking apart this great defense, you're breaking apart this great team, you should be part of a dynasty. If they get given the opportunity to earn $20 million somewhere else, they are going to go and take the money, and it's rightly so. They just stayed for this year, they won their Super Bowl ring, and if they're going to get paid by someone else, which is what they should get done, then it's fair enough for them to move on and make some cash.
Yeah, I mean, this is it. I mean, you can't say anything against that. It is what it is. It's what guys want to get paid. It's just one of those things you're just going to have to deal with. But it's like everything else. Every other NFL team, you've got to do the best you can to try and fill those gaps and try and put a competitive team back out on the field. And I think Seattle will be fine. Obviously, I'd already penciled him straight away as a playoff team. I do hear the Detroit Lions, I think, are 33-1 to win the Super Bowl next year.
Ooh, I like that bet. Although I do hear they hired Jim Caldwell this offseason, so I immediately realised it'd just be like wiping my ass with my money. So, I rescind that bet.
Yeah.
Although Jim Schwartz is out of town, so who knows what could happen right now. They could be the new NFL dynasty for all we know. Jim Schwartz might have held them back that much. He's that bad a coach.
I don't know if I would go that far. That's the reason why they're being held back. But
he's that bad.
He is that bad. But yeah, no. I mean, as I say, Seattle will be fine. But I say for me, my concern is the whole. Well, one of my concerns is how competitive the NFC is, and then the salary cap here to go along with that as well. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not going to be like a match. We're not saying here it's going to be like a massive walkout.
Not at all. I'm not saying that.
Seattle,
I'm not saying they're going to drop off and not be competitive. I wouldn't dare say that. They've got the great things in place. They've got the best two safeties in the league tied up. Chancellor they paid last offseason. Earl Thomas is going to stay around. They've got a fantastic head coach in Pete Carroll. They've got the quarterback set, which they know they can build around. That's important, on a deal that's fantastic for next season as well. So they've got all that in place. That's basically the foundation. You just have to continually nail the nice little pieces that tail in around it, like getting a pass rush you can get 10 sacks for on the cheap per season. So everything's in place there. It's just very, very difficult to do because it's what the league mandates and it's how they try to structure the entire league. And the only team that's got around it, fortunately enough, is my New England Patriots by doing just that, by having one quarterback in place, knowing your system, and bringing in the cheap pieces that you think can do it, and then nailing that evaluation process. Yeah,
and the other thing is as well is that the fact is if you've got an elite quarterback, he makes players around him look much better than they are. So and that's what I say about Brady time and time again. He elevates people, and I think that's Russell Wilson is a different quarterback and he poses a different threat. So if you have your game plan in place and you've got your coach in place, you've got your quarterback in place, then you just bring in players to fit your system, and that's fine. And sometimes when you bring in guys to fit your system, that might not necessarily be the best guy on the market. That might not necessarily be the most expensive guy on the market. You're getting a player in to fit your system, and that's the way you win in the NFL. Who'd have thought that having a system in place with a quarterback and a game plan, and you fit players into that, makes you successful in the NFL?
I think maybe you should take that message down to South Beach because they've been trying to figure that thing out for like 20 plus years now. Yeah. They've not done a good job at all. Yeah, that's right.
We'll just give a wide receiver $60 million over however many years it is, and that's what we needed. This is it.
They signed a taller Percy Harvin and then didn't use him like Percy Harvin. They just said run long, go long. It's like the famous thing the Brits learn when they first learn about football. Go long, Mike. And we'll get a quarterback who doesn't have a big arm to try and throw it deep. Wait, what? We're doing what here? Let's fire Mike Sherman. It's blatantly his fault. All right, Stephen. We had a question about this, I guess, came on the Twitter feed, and we said we get to the questions bit by bit. Was that question phrased any differently than what we've already covered off?
I think we've covered off the one around the did you find the SEC Bowl to be one of the worst of all time? I don't. We'll just clarify that. I don't think it was one of the worst of all time. But I do agree with what Michael Ward's come out and said. It was, for me, quite a massive letdown. So I think we both kind of feel that way. I think it'll be an interesting question actually to post out here that's been posted here. Is like Donald Cuddy's come out and asked basically saying who are the notable free agencies off-season for both the Seahawks and the Broncos, and chances they'll stay or move on. I do want to say something to Mr. Cuddy. From the sound of your tweet last night, you may have had a few too many where you was actually celebrating the Super Bowl, from what I gather. Tweet us if I'm wrong, but I don't think I am.
I want to see the pictures of Donald Cuddy partying. That's what I want to see. So they can go up in the first 80k studios and offices. Cuddy partying is what we get. The Broncos have got a plethora of free agents. They'll be fine in the free agent pool. They've brought in like 36 in the last couple of years because they can sell people on the 1 year short term ideal. If they're young, come and play with Payson. We're going to be back in it again next year, and it will get you a long term contract the following year, which is what they're finding this year. And then what do you call them, Stephen? Those ring chasers that are around the league. Yep. You can pick them up. They will be desperate to go to Mile High right now with John Fox, Peyton Manning, and John Elway. They've got guys like, let me look through the list here of guys they got available. I mean, Champ Bailey, I think, is going to retire, which is a sad loss, but at least he got to play in the Super Bowl. Quinton Jammer and Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie, these are all cornerbacks that they're gonna need to replace. They weren't great anyway, but they are notable free agents. And then you've got Eric Decker, who's probably the most notable free agent they've got. And it's people will think, well, they can just let him walk away. They're predicated so much on those mismatches. It's very difficult to find a 6'4", 6'5" wide receiver. They need to keep him around. So that's an interesting one for them on the wide receiver front. Plus, Wes Welker's there. He's got a year left on his deal, but he's getting older. He's taking more hits. What do you want to do with him? You got to put him back in the firing line. I think they go and look at wide receiver in free agency, and I think that then the cornerback is a major upgrade that's needed. Their issue will again be against the salary cap. Is Payton going to take a pay reduction? I think he might take a bit of a restructure, for want of a better word. What he'll probably do is restructure into retired years, then just retire. It's probably what he'll do. So I can see the Broncos doing that. They need to clear some cap space, but they'll have no shortage of veterans desperate to get there on a contract, and they'll have some young guys who are looking for that big payday who had a down year this year, signing on for 1 year deals so that they can get paid the following.
Yeah, no, this is it. I mean, Decker's the interesting one because I think, he was one who didn't have a good game yesterday.
What, Eric Decker was playing last night?
Apparently so. He caught one pass. He didn't have a great game yesterday, and I think he would be one that I think they're going to probably have to let walk if they want to re-sign the Thomases in a year's time. Moreno's another one that's going to be going as well, with them drafting Monty Ball. So I think that's another one that's going to be walking away. But I agree with Manning restructuring his deal. And it's something that we see time and time again. I mean, Brady's done it himself as well at times to help get those extra guys in. And I think you're going to get those ring chasers that are going to want to try and get a ring for themselves and know full well that there is already this, one of these elite offences already in place, but there's definitely going to be something on the defensive side of the ball. And in terms of Seattle, how do you see their free agent situation going? Obviously, I think it's Michael Bennett. I think he's pretty much decided that he's going to re-sign.
Yeah, we've heard that he's going to stick around. Yeah, that may have just been some post-Super Bowl stuff. I'd probably wait and see on that, unless they were just talking before the Super Bowl. His representative probably said, whoa, calm down there, Michael. Let's just wait and see what other teams bring to the table. That's what I'd be advising him on. Maybe wait out a bit, let them rewatch the Super Bowl tape, and you might get a couple more $1 million out of that. Yeah,
it is one of those things. Maybe they do need to take a step back and see how it's going. I think Golden Tate's another one. I think he's a free agent as well. Gone. So I think he's gone on. And Baldwin's a restricted free agent, I believe.
He'll stick around. They're in an interesting spot because they really do need upgrades at receiver. But yet they spent so much on getting Percy Harvin and then re-signing him, and he's took a massive chunk out of their cap. Plus, let's not forget, yes, they have the cap space this year, but they have to plan ahead for this Richard Sherman, Russell Wilson offseason next year, because they can both renegotiate contracts. They're going to get massive monster money from somewhere. I mean, Seattle are going to have to cough that up unless you want an unhappy Russell Wilson, which I don't think is actually plausible. I don't think he can ever be unhappy from what we've seen so far. So they're going to have to plan for that, which means giving out 1 year deals is what they're going to have to do, which may have other teams beat them to free agents. Because yes, they can sell you on the ideal of that you come for the 1 year, you maybe grab a ring, you compete in the NFC, then you get a multi-year deal somewhere else because we can't offer you a multi-year one now with the Sherman Wilson thing and that we don't know what's going on. Some guys may just say it's not worth the injury risk, I'm going to sign the dotted line for 2 years somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, this is it. I mean, it does depend on who you bring in. I mean, guys that maybe at the end of their careers that, can still do a job for you are more likely to sign maybe for that 1 year deal. But, I mean, it's a big chance to take. And you could get that injury and then you've written off future money. And then if you don't win the ring, then what have you really done? You've actually, blown it up when you could have just taken some safe money and played elsewhere. So, again, it is a situation that some of these guys are going to weigh up over the off-season. And it's not just going to be for Denver and Seattle. I mean, it is going to be as well. I mean, like the 49ers, I have a feeling this off-season, I think maybe the 49ers and the Seahawks maybe will match signing for signing maybe at some point. It's going to be quite an interesting off-season between them two teams, as they potentially try and outdo each other when they try and fill those holes.
Well, they had that last year, of course. They had the arms race when they were all just gathering pieces. We get bold and we're going to go and get Percy Harvin. It's going to be much more difficult for them to do because they're going to have to think long-term with this thing. And I think Kaepernick can re-sign this year. I think it's the year where Newton and Colin Kaepernick can re-sign. He probably wants his money now, which is within his right. If he thinks he can get it, he's got the leverage. Then he's probably going to go for it, which will limit what they can do. And like we've already said multiple times, Seattle are going to have to think about this Russell Wilson thing next year. So it is a year that's probably going to be difficult, unless they want to say to Hakeem Nicks, here's $10 million, come and play wide receiver for 1 year. Don't take the multi-year deal in Jacksonville. Come here for 1 year and then go and get paid by New York or somewhere further down the line. I'm trying to find here Wes Welker's cap figures for next year because I'm wondering if it's feasible. Now I think he earns $6 million as a $3 million roster bonus, but I can't find the exact details on Roto-World here. I'm trying to find what the cap hit would be. But if it's feasible, Stephen, to free up some cap room if you're the Denver Broncos, would you let go of Wes Welker? At this age, with all those concussions, he'll turn 33 next year. I mean, we're up to now more than double digit. Well, not more than double digit, sorry, more than 10 concussions. It's a lot of miles on the clock there. I think it's part of the reason why New England were wary last year, and obviously he was fantastic this year. But what to say you draft a slot receiver with that amount of weapons, or, you go and get another guy with maybe less miles on the clock, a la how the Patriots just said, let's go and get Danny Amendola instead. I mean, would you consider that if you're John Elway, if it frees up some salary cap to bring Decker back or bring in another defensive back?
Yeah, I think I would definitely consider it. I mean, what is Welker now? How many Super Bowls he played in?
It would be three.
And lost all three?
And he's dropped 3 Super Bowl winning passes, in my estimation. I think it is.
So, bad luck charm and all that. And
yeah, Peyton's already driving him back to Massachusetts. Have him back, Tom. Doesn't come up when I need him most.
Yeah, I think this is it. It's quite a plethora of receivers in the draft. So, I mean, I think I would probably maybe take my chances. So I think if you can think you can get something decent in the draft, I think you've got to look at where you can free up cap room in those positions and then try and fill those holes and then maybe try and find somewhere else. And it's an unfortunate situation of where Wes Welker's had those concussions, and for me, he is one concussion away from being out of football, and sadly maybe something a lot worse than that. So I think Wes Welker for me shouldn't be playing football now. I think that's the other thing as well with it, and maybe that conversation needs to happen, and maybe it's a conversation that does happen over the off season. But I have no doubts that Wes Welker will be suited up playing football in Denver or somebody else come the start of the 2014 NFL season.
Oh, he'll absolutely be somewhere unless the commissioner intervenes, which isn't going to happen. So I'm looking at it now. So Roto-World says that it is the $6 million for 2014 and a $3 million roster bonus, which by my calculations mean he's due to earn $9 million. And with the bonus, they would free up $6 million of cap space with a $3 million cap hit. Might be worth taking. If you can get that $6 million back, you parlay 4 off to Eric Decker, and then you spend the $2 million on your draft pick, his rookie deal. That might be worth it, I might really consider that with the age, with the injury risks and what have you. Wes Welker may well be cut this offseason. I'm calling it first, Stephen. Wes Welker to be cut by the Broncos.
It wouldn't surprise me. It is one of those things. Sometimes you do have to make that business decision as to what is best for you going forward, and that for me does sound like it could be. It could be a good move for the Broncos to make, because I think they've got to make those necessary tweaks to stay competitive. And moving on slightly, George Jennings has sent us a question around do we find the off season to be too long in the NFL? Season starts is done before you know it every year. So I suppose the kind of feeling is that the NFL season lasts for 4 months of the year, but the off seasons last for 8. But I think probably from your point of view, you're probably going to say no, because I know you like your big draft build up from the moment kind of like the clock turns into the new year.
Yeah, it's not just that I enjoy it, it's work. So I'm now working, I'm now on the clock for work for 2 months. So I actually don't enjoy it as much as people probably think, because I get to just sit back and tell people, yeah, I work for a living looking at the draft, and I've got 2 months to actually make a living. So I obviously enjoy it. It's not too long for me. Obviously, it's frustrating, but if you want good football, what do you want them to do, play all year round? I mean, don't get me wrong, I'd love to see the USFL come back. Let's have they should, for me, bring out the, what we now see in spring, is it? And they should bring back a league where it's like a D League that we play in the spring, where your practice roster guys, so guys like Lawrence Okoye of the San Francisco 49ers, so the affiliate of the NFL teams can play some spring ball. I'd love to see that in the spring for some fans. And then, of course, I have the draft and free agency starts. It's got franchise tag. There's going to be a big drama. 24/7 news about Jimmy Graham. Is he going to get tagged as a receiver? As a tight end? Will he get tagged? Will he ask for a trade? God knows what's going to happen there. So that'll take up your time. Plus, Michael Vick's on the free agent market. Tim Tebow's going to get pulled out. Trust me, people, it will fly by. We'll soon be in the draft. The boring period for me is from draft to a training camp. That's the boring period. That's like, what, a month or maybe less than a month before rookies have to report for their OTAs. So it's that's the bad month. But for me now, it's all work and it's all go. So it's fine for me. I guess if you're not big on the draft, you don't really care about college sports, you just want to find out who was drafted afterwards, and obviously you're not working in it, I can see how it would be very boring for you and mind-numbing. But go and check out some documentaries online is what I'd say, and get to know some history of the sport.
Yeah, check out the history of the sport. There's plenty of older games online as well that you can watch during the off season. I mean, YouTube is a great base for that in this day and age. So yeah, there's still plenty of football